Hi folks, this is Karim Raouf from IT Visualizer channel. They will continue our lab, the matrix labs, the video number 24. I've been discussing in the previous video the following. I've been still working on discussing the different tests done by the DCDIAG tool, which is a very important tool to troubleshoot and discover problems concerning the Active Directory and the domain controllers. We all know that Active Directory is a very complex system that contains or is consisting from a lot of components. So each of these components can, if not working properly, can cause a problem to the Active Directory. And also the domain controllers are operating systems. So the domain controller you have, or you promote a domain controller, you should have Windows operating system, then you can Windows Server operating system, then you should install the Active Directory rules and features, then you should promote it to a domain controller. So the domain controller, it's a feature that is installed on operating system. So if the operating system is not working properly, this will affect the domain controller functionality, and also will affect the Active Directory functionality. So the DCDIAG tool, the 21 tests done by this tool will troubleshoot and analyze the status of the Active Directory and the domain controller. So we have stopped the last time at objects replicated. This is one of the tests done by the DCDIAG tool. We have seen that the objects replicated, this is a very important test that will check for the replication of two important things for each domain controller: the machine account for the domain controller and the object system agent objects of the domain controller. This is very two important things that should be replicated to the other domain controllers so they can communicate with each other and replicate to each other. And also, one of the things this test ensure that it is replicated is the NTDS object and the domain controller object in the Active Directory. These two settings should also, by default, being checked by this test to ensure it is also replicated to the other domain controllers. NTDS setting contains some setting related to the replication schedule, the replication links to the other domain controllers. This is very, very important for the domain controllers to know how they will replicate to each other and when they will replicate to each other through the NTDS setting. And the domain controller object is something like the machine account, or it verifies the name of the domain controller and it is registered to the Active Directory. Anyway, we have seen this test and we have discovered it and we have analyzed it using different AI tools. Today we will continue working with the tests of the DCDIAG tool. One of this is called outbound secure channels. If we see the description, it checks that secure channel exists for all of the domain controllers in the domain to the domains that are specified by the test. Okay, so it's saying here, here's saying outbound secure connection. I think here is saying that it is testing if there is a domain contains some domain controllers, it will test if there is a secure connection between the domain controllers in a certain domain to other external domain controllers by specifying the test domain parameters. So this is not testing the secure channels within the same domain. This is outside the domains or with other domains, okay, not within the same domain. But by the way, most of the connections between the domain controllers within the same domain, it is encrypted and secure. Okay, so this is one thing also to take note. All of the connections between the domain controllers, it is secure and encrypted by the Kerberos, I think. Okay, so here it checks the secure channels exist for all of the domain controllers in the domain to the domains that are specified by test domain parameters. The no intersection parameter prevents DCDIAG from limiting the test to the domain controllers in that site. The no inter restriction parameter prevents DCDIAG from limiting the tests to the domain controllers in the site. Oh, so he's now, if we tell him no inter-site restriction parameter prevents DCDIAG from limiting the test to domain controllers in the site. So it can test the, the connections within the same site. Okay, this is not clear here. So he's saying it will test the secure channels for domain controllers in the domain to other domains, okay, to other domains within the same site, or I think in the same forest, okay. So to the same site, let me here get this and ask the AI tool to explain it more. It will explain this in simple, in layman terms. And let's see what will be the answer. Okay, let me tell him that this is a test called um, outbound secure channels done by DCDIAG tool. So here, after telling him that, he's saying that the outbound secure channel test performed by DCDIAG tool ensure that the secure connections called secure channels are established from all main servers, domain controllers in your network to other specified networks domains. Secure channel that they are encrypted. Okay, is beginning explaining each term. Secure channel, they are encrypted connections that keep data safe as it travels between servers. Domain controller, they are the key servers in the network that manage users' access and security. Test domain parameter, this specified which other networks domain that test should check for secure connections. No intersection parameter. Normally the test might only check servers in a specific location, but using this setting makes check on all main servers no matter where they are. In simple terms, these tests make sure that all your main servers have safe and secure connections to specified networks, checking all locations without restrictions. So here, uh, let's ask him. I am confused. This test will check secure connections between domain controllers in the same domain, or only between domain controllers outside or external domains. Let's see here what he will. Okay, the outbound checks the secure connection between the domain controller domain and domain controllers in other specified external domains. It's how we break domain controllers in your domain. These are domain servers in your network. Other specified external domains. These are network outside your domain you can specify. So the test verify the domain controllers in your domain have secure connection to domain controllers in their specified external domains. does not check the secure connection between domain controllers within the same domain. Okay, so it seems from the name it's outbound secure connections. Okay, so this is very, very straightforward. Okay, so we don't need to explain it more. So if you go to Microsoft websites, it's saying that, let's go to the test. Okay, we can go, this is called outbound. Okay, replication. Here you go. This test does not run by default. It checks the secure channels exist for all of the domain controllers in the domain, the domain specified by so and so. Okay, you can tell it to test it within domains or domains in the same site. You say no intersection parameter prevents DCDIAG from emitting tests to the domain controllers in the site. Okay, so you can have one site that contains a couple of domains. Okay, so for example, in Cairo, if you have a site named Cairo, you can have, for example, domain called Giza, for example, .cairo, maadi.cairo. So I think he is here is checking the connection between domain controllers or domain controllers in domains within the same site. Okay, so I think it's very, very simple and very, very clear. Okay, so this is outbound secure connections. So this is very, very simple and straightforward. So if you go to the PDF of Mr. Low Vanderpool, let's go and see if we have other details we can check here. So let's go to the outbound outbound secure channels. Okay, and then let's go there. Okay, here you go. He's saying, let's see, what does it say? Secure channels are used by domain controllers communication with each other. The domain controllers that are a part of the same domain or different domains. So he's saying, he is confirming that to make outbound secure connections to other domain controllers. He is there saying that secure channels are used by domain controllers for communication with each other, okay, within the same domain or different domains. So this is what I was talking about. For tasks like replication and user authentication, this ensures that domain controllers can establish these secure connections as expected. But here he is saying here that the same domain or different domain. So if this means that it can test the secure channels within domain controllers in the same domain, I don't think so. So it probably causes failure. Let's see here, network issues. We're saying this test could fail because, for example, there is your firewall blocking blocking the connection. So the secure channel could be or should be established if you have a connection between the domain controllers, or you can establish a connection between the domain controllers. If the connection is not there, then there is a problem. Maybe firewall problem, DNS not referring to the correct domain controllers IP addresses, incorrect time setting, significant change. If the timing between the domain controllers is not correct, then the connection or secure connection will not be established. This is very, very important. Okay, secure channel broken or corrupted. Okay, this could happen. Occasionally, the secure channel can be broken due to various reasons, which would be prevent successful connections. Active Directory trust issues. If there are issues with the trust relationship between domains, this could affect secure channel connections. So if there is a problem with trust, if there are external trusts, so for example, if there is a domain or a forest, maybe there are forest trusts. Okay, so I think here he can talking about forest trust or external forest trust or trust between domains. Okay, the trust between domains, maybe a domain and a child domain, for example. Domain control availability. If one or more domain controllers are down or unreachable, it could cause secure channel connections failure. Okay, to resolve this, take appropriate action. Okay, and these are the errors that could appear if this test failed. For example, Kerberos, or these are errors that will indicate, of course, the test will fail, and these events are an evident that the test failed because of something. For example, the Kerberos here, it means that the time synchronization is not correct, so the test will fail. For example, if there is issues time synchronization between domain controllers, the test will fail, and it will and the time synchronization error will be recorded in the event viewer under ID5. Okay, if there is an issue time synchronization between domain controllers, which is a crucial for Kerberos authentication, you might see this clog SKU to great. Okay, so another thing, for example, net login. The event is logged when a secure channel to a domain controller can't be established. This usually indicates issues with the machine account. Okay, so also the secure channel may be not established because there is a problem with the machine account. It is not registered properly within, or the domain controller is not registered properly within the Active Directory. Just wait for a moment, guys. So let me take all of these and ask AI to explain it further. Okay, let's go here. Copy. And then go there and ask to explain this in layman terms. So as we can see here, it's very simple. It's saying that explaining DCDIAG, it is a tool used by system administrator to check if a domain controller, a key server in a network, can make secure connections. This test in specific, okay, make a secure connection to other domain controllers. Okay, these connections are important for things like sharing data and verifying user identities, referring to replication. Secure connection, if checks the domain controller can establish secure encrypted connection with other domain controllers both within the same network and in different networks. I think this is here the problem with this test, or I think it's not secure connections with domain controllers within the same domain. Okay, this is within domain controllers with or in different domains. Okay, so this is one thing we should focus on. Okay, so if there is no secure connections between the domains or between the domain controllers in different domains, the replication will not be done. Okay, so these secure connections are useful important tasks like data replication and authentication. Correct again, if you are authenticating users in different domains, so one user in one domain is trying to access resources in other domain within the same forest, then it will not be done unless there is secure connections between both domain controllers in different domains. Okay, so he's saying common cause of failure, problems like incorrect DNS, firewall blocking, incorrect time setting, uh, a lot of things actually. So we can see very simple, nothing to nothing to see here. Okay, so this is very simple test. It checks if there is secure connections between the domain controllers in one domain and domain controllers in other domains. Okay, This is important for the replication to happen. Okay, if there is no secure channels between domain controllers within different domains, the replication will not be done. Okay, so this is one important thing to note. Let's continue and see the other things here. So here, for example, Mr. Loban report saying that sometimes if there is a problem with the time, you can just adjust the time. If there is a problem with, for example, this test fail because of some incorrect time synchronization between domain controllers within different domains, you can just change it manually, but this is not the correct way. You should make sure that the NTP server or the time server syncing or the time server is set correctly, and all can reach the time server and sync their times with the time server correctly. Okay, to fix something like this. Anyway, so this is one thing. And these are the errors. Okay, as we can see here, I'm just following his video. And now we can continue working with the other tests. For example, we will use with the replication. Okay, so the test or the other test is coming something called replication. If we go there and see uh, the test, one of the tests which is run is called replication. Okay, this is called replication. This test check all AD replication connection objects for all naming contexts on specified DC. Okay, so every Active Directory database, we have seen this before, every Active Directory database, let me just revise it, will have partitions. Every one of these partitions have something called replication connection. This connection, in it we will identify uh, where this partition will be replicated to. So for example, this partition will be replicated to the schema partition on another Active Directory database on another domain controller. These are specified in the replication connection. So let me go again see here. These tests will check that the replication connection objects for all of the naming constants, he is referring here to the databases of the Active Directory. Every one of these have a replication connection. In it, we specify the replication partner that this schema database will replicate to. Okay, and other setting, for example, I think the timing and other things. Okay, let's, or that I suppose. So here is saying that all of the AD replication connection objects for all naming contexts, this is referred to as database or partitions on specified DC. If the last replication attempt was successful, so he will test if all of the databases on a certain domain controller or Active Directory database on a certain domain controller is replicated to other domain controllers. The last replication attempt was successful or returns an error. The replication is disabled if the replication on this server is disabled. So you can disable replication. You can disable replication on one domain controller. So for example, you can say that DC number one will not replicate its database to other DCs, or it will not receive replications from other DCs. So it can be inbound replication or outbound replication. So this test will ensure that the database on a certain Active Directory or database of a certain the database of the Active Directory on a certain domain control is replicated to other domain controllers. the replication is not disabled, the replication latency is more than 12 hours. The last replication or the replication should not be done more than 12 hours. So every replication should be done in a certain amount of time. If it exceeds that time, then there is a problem. There's some slowness in the network. Okay, so replication should be done in a certain amount of time. If it exceeds that time, then there is a problem with the connection. Okay, so let's see again. This is the explanation. I think we can go. Uh, I think this is very easy. We don't need AI to explain it more. We can go to Mr. Low Bundle Paul uh, PDF. Here is saying that it checks the status of Active Directory replication between the domain controllers. It's saying that the replication is a critical process, describing the replication process, ensures any changes made to the directory, so and so, up to date. The problem or causes of failure of this test can be DNS. Okay, if the DNS is not correct, it will refer to incorrect domain controllers or incorrect domain controller partner or replication partners will be incorrect, or lack of service records. For example, we all know that every domain controller is registered in the DNS. So, for example, if one domain controller wants to talk to another domain controller, it will ask the DNS, or it will check with the DNS. It will give it the name, and then it will give it the IP address of the domain controller. And again, if I need to know if the domain controller I'm communicating with having some services on it, for example, like the LDAP or the Kerberos service, then also this will be checked from the DNS. We have seen this. So the services on the domain controller, it is registered in the DNS as well as the name and IP address of the domain controller. So if there is no enough records or correct records for the domain controller's IP address and the services registered or services provided by domain controller, if these are not recorded correctly in a DNS, then there is a problem with the replication. Okay, and the replication test will fail. Okay, incorrect sites. For example, if you are putting some domain controllers in the incorrect sites, this will have some replication, or the replication will fail. Okay, if the domain controllers are not put in their correct sites. Okay, this can do a problem with the replication, and the test of the replication will fail. Some firewall, if there is firewall blocking the replication, okay, blocking the replication between, or closing the replication ports between, not the replication ports, the ports that Active Directory communicates with. So one Active Directory on one domain controller wants to communicate with another Active Directory on another domain controller, some ports should be opened so they can communicate and then they can replicate. If these ports are blocked by the firewall, then the replication will not happen and the replication test will fail. So these are all, if we go there, these are all tests. Sorry, these are all things, just a moment. These are all tests, are all things that can have this test fail, okay? Then inadequate replication permissions. We all know that every domain controller should have the necessary permissions so it can replicate its database. So if the group called enterprise domain controllers doesn't have the sufficient permissions to replicate uh, uh, this group in specific is responsible or having the permissions to replicate the Active Directory database to other domain controllers. If this group doesn't have the sufficient permissions, or your domain controller is not a member of this group, enterprise domain controllers, you will not be able to replicate the Active Directory database to other domain controllers. Okay, this is one good thing, or one thing. Or this group doesn't have the sufficient permission. So for example, this group have something called replication or replicate change, if this permission or this right is not granted to the enterprise domain controllers, then all of the domain controllers will not be able to replicate the changes to each other, or they will not able to replicate, okay, I think as a whole, okay. So this also in accorded replication permissions, replication latency, and tombstone. Here is saying if there is a significant latency in replication, if the latency or the replication is not done for a long time, then uh, there will be problems or the replication test will fail. Here there is significant latency in replication. If a domain controller has been offline for a time longer than the time stone, we know that the time stone, it is a certain time. The Active Directory will keep deleted items, okay, in it within certain amount of time. For example, for 60 or 180 days, it will be held by the Active Directory. It will not delete it unless or after, like the recycle bin, it will keep the items deleted from the Active Directory for a certain amount of time, and then after, for example, 60 or 180 days, it will delete these items. So for example, if a domain controller is offline for a certain amount of time, then for a long time, then the replication will not happen, and then there will be some inconsistency between the domain controllers and this domain controller. Okay, so this also one thing we need to make sure that the replication is done in certain intervals. Okay, we have seen that within domain controllers within the same site, this should be done within 15 seconds to at least 5 minutes, okay, or the latency, acceptable latency range is 5 minutes within domain controllers within the same site. But within domain controllers in other sites, you can have until 15 minutes. So the latency acceptable is 15 minutes to 30 minutes maximum. Okay, this is one thing, and you can have a latency for 3 hours, but this is not more than that. Okay, so you should have the replication done within time, within certain time, so the consistency between domain controllers is done, okay, or it is consistent. No one will have something the other domain controller doesn't have. Okay, replication can fail or create lingering objects leading to potential inconsistency. We know I will ask the AI to explain the tombstone concept, but anyway, let me first get this and tell the AI to explain it. Okay, time synchronization, we have seen this time synchronization. If the time synchronization is not correct, then the replication will fail. Broken trust relationship, if there is no trust, the outbound secure channels, okay, test, or the connection or the secure channels between domain controllers. We have seen this. The domain controllers have secure connection between them. If there is no secure connection, the replication will not happen. Incorrect seize or transfer of Vesmo roles. If flexible single master operation roles are improperly seized or transferred, this can cause replication issues. If you are moving your Vesmo roles from one server to another or from one domain controller to another, and this was not done correctly, this will the replication will fail. I will try to what I need to do, I will try to ask the AI to give us examples so it can explain all of these. Okay, so we need to explain, for example, if there is improper DNS, I need an example to tell me if there is improper DNS, how the replication will fail, and all of these things. But first, before going and ask the AI tool to provide examples concerning this probably cause of failures, let's first see something here. Here there is how the replication will happen. For example, if I have here a user that is changed on one domain controller, I need to replicate it to other domain controllers. What will happen first? The change or originate LDAP update to domain directory partition incremental USN. So the user is changed on the domain partition. Remember that if we go there to the Active Directory database, This is the domain partition. Here the user or one user is changed here. So I am changing my user, okay, in the domain partition. For example, changing the email, for example, for one user in my Active Directory, this will be changed or written to the domain partition in the Active Directory database. I need to replicate this change to the other domain controllers. How this will happen? First of all, the change will happen and then it will be marked with an incremental update sequence number. We will know what is, or we will see what is an update sequence number. This is something, a special number, okay, that is put on the Active Directory database. So for example, if there is a change that happened, for example, I have changed the user email on one database, on one domain controller, this will be given a number. And when the other domain controllers see this number, they will say, okay, there is an update that happens. So this number is a reference, or it is like a sign that there is a change in the database of one Active Directory on one domain controller. We will see that. So for example, a change will happen, then it should identify the replication partner, which is this partner. Every domain controller have a partner. This is identified in the NTDS setting, okay, of the domain controller. Okay, NTDS setting for this domain controller. Okay, identify replication partner, then it will query the DNS for the IP address for the replication partner. Okay, and then they will communicate and authenticate each other. They will verify each other. Everyone will verify that his partner is within the same domain or within the same domain, and they are both are domain controllers. Then they will communicate using the RPC protocol. He will send the change, and then after the change is sent, okay, the replication partner will ask to replicate the change or give him the change, send the updates to the destination, and then it will begin writing the change to the database. So let's see first how the AI will explain this replication process. Let's go and see. If you go there and ask the AI tool to explain this one, so let's go there. But first, let me go and ask it to explain this one. So this is this is the one for Mr. Lowen. Explain this in layman terms. I think this is for what? This is for this outbound secure connection. Okay, let's see this one. Okay, so we can see here it's talking about the replication. Okay, let me read this loudly.
Sure, here's a layman's explanation of the DCDIAG/test replications command. What the command does. The DCDIAG test replications command checks if the Active Directory AD system is properly replicating data between the domain controllers. Why replication is important? Replication. This is the process where changes made to the directory, like adding user accounts or modifying group policies, on one domain controller are copied to all other domain controllers. This ensures all domain controllers have the same information. Common causes of failure. 1. Improper DNS configuration. Active Directory relies on DNS to find domain controllers. If DNS settings are incorrect, replication can fail. 2. Incorrect site and services configuration. Misconfigured settings in the Active Directory Sites and Services tool, like wrong subnet definitions or site links, can cause replication issues. 3. Firewall and network issues. If necessary, communication ports are blocked by firewalls, or if there are other network issues, replication can fail. 4. Inadequate replication permissions. The account used for replication needs the right permissions, otherwise replication will fail. 5. Replication latency and tombstone lifetimes. Significant delays in replication or domain controllers being offline for too long can cause replication failures. 6. Time synchronization issues. Active Directory uses the Kerberos protocol for authentication, which needs synchronized time. Large time differences between domain controllers can cause replication issues. 7. Broken trust relationships. If the trust relationships between domain controllers are broken, replication can fail. 8. Incorrectly seized or transferred FSMO roles. FSMO roles are special roles within AD. If these roles are not properly managed, replication issues can occur. How to fix issues. Check network settings. Ensure DNS settings are correct and necessary ports are open. Review site and services configuration. Make sure settings in the Active Directory Sites and Services tool are correct. Verify permissions. Ensure the account used for replication has the necessary permissions. Monitor replication timing. Keep an eye on replication latency and ensure domain controllers are not offline for too long. Synchronize time settings. Ensure all domain controllers have synchronized time settings. Check trust relationships. Verify that trust relationships between domain controllers are intact. Manage FSMO roles properly. Ensure FSMO roles are properly seized or transferred. Useful event IDs for troubleshooting. 1. Event ID 1311 NTDS KCC indicates problems with the AD partitions, which could be related to site and service configuration issues. 2. Event ID 153 user NV indicates DNS issues when Windows cannot determine the user or computer name. 3. Event ID 4015 DNS server service indicates critical DNS server errors related to Active Directory. 4. Event ID 1925 NTDS KCC indicates failure to establish a replication link, possibly due to network or site and service configuration issues. 5. Event ID 2042 NTDS replication indicates a domain controller has been offline for too long, causing replication failures. 6. Event ID 2092 NTDS replication indicates a problem with time synchronization if a domain controller with a FSMO role did not advertise as a time server. 7. Event IDs 1988 and 1388 NTDS replication indicate lingering objects due to problems with tombstone lifetime and replication latency. 8. Event ID 722 netlogon indicates a secure session failure with a domain controller, possibly due to broken trust relationships. In simple terms, this command checks if all your main servers are sharing information properly. If it finds problems, it tells you what might be wrong, so you can fix it, ensuring all servers have up-to-date information and work smoothly together.
So, tell him to explain all of these using a real-world example. Explain this using real-world example in the context of Active Directory domain. For example, a domain named dot internal with two domain controllers PDC named DCSM01225 and ADC named DCSM0225. Okay, so let's see how we can explain all of these using an example. Let me see here if he will give us a good example. I think here this example is not that good. Give me a better example. Okay, I think it's the same one, but let's go and see the example that I give him. Maybe it will be better. So let's see and read.
Sure, let's use the real-world example of a domain named shotmatrix.internal with two domain controllers, DCSM0125, primary domain controller, PDC, and DCSM225, additional domain controller, ADC. What the command does. The DCDIAG test replications command is used to check if the domain controllers DCSM0125 and DCSM025 in the matrix.internal domain are properly replicating data between each other. This ensures that any changes made to the directory on one controller are also reflected on the other. Real-world example. Imagine you have an office network with the matrix.internal domain. You have two main servers, the primary domain controller PDC, the additional domain controller. Why replication is important. Replication ensures that if you add a new user account, change a password, or update group policies on DCSM005, these changes are automatically copied to DCSM0225. This way, both servers have the same up-to-date information. Common causes of failure. 1. Improper DNS configuration. If DCSM01225 and DCSM0225 cannot find each other due to wrong DNS settings, they can't share updates. Example. DNS entries for DCSM01225 or DCSM0225 are incorrect or missing. 2. Incorrect site and services configuration. If the network setup in the Active Directory Sites and Services tool is wrong, it can lead to replication issues. Example: the subnet for DCSM0225 is incorrectly defined, causing it to be placed in the wrong site. 3. Firewall and network issues. If firewalls block necessary ports or there are other network problems, replication can fail. Example: a firewall is blocking the replication traffic between DCSM0125 and DCSM0225. 4. Inadequate replication permissions. The account used for replication needs the right permissions. Example: the replication account does not have the necessary permissions to replicate changes from DCSM01225 to DCSM0225. 5. Replication latency and tombstone lifetimes. If there are delays in replication or if a controller is offline for too long, replication can fail. Example: DCS025 was offline for a month, longer than the tombstone lifetime, causing replication issues when it came back online. 6. Time synchronization issues. If the clocks on DCSM0125 and DCSM0225 are not synchronized, Kerberos authentication can fail, affecting replication. Example: DCSM01225 is 5 minutes ahead of DCSM0225, causing authentication failures. 7. Broken trust relationships. If the trust relationship between DCSM01225 and DCSM225 is broken, replication can fail. Example: trust issues arise due to incorrect configuration or network problems. 8. Incorrectly seized or transferred FSMO roles. FSMO roles are special roles within AD. If these roles are not properly managed, replication issues can occur. Example: an FSMO role is improperly transferred, causing replication problems. How to fix issues. Check network settings. Ensure DNS settings for DCSM0125 and DCSM025 are correct and necessary ports are open. Review site and services configuration. Verify that the network settings in Active Directory Sites and Services tool are correct for both servers. Verify permissions. Ensure the replication account has the necessary permissions. Monitor replication timing. Check for replication delays and ensure controllers are not offline for too long. Synchronize time settings. Make sure DCSM0125 and DCSM0225 have synchronized clocks. Check trust relationships. Verify that trust relationships between DCSM0125 and DCMI are intact. Manage FSMO roles properly. Ensure FSMO roles are properly transferred or seized. Useful events.
Anyway, one of the things here that the time, if there is 5 minutes ahead, this will not cause replication to fail. Okay, I think it's acceptable for 1 hour. If there is more than 1 hour, then there will be a problem with logging into the domains or domain controllers, but acceptable 1 hour as far as I know, not 5 minutes. Okay, but anyway, these are example, but this is not what I was expected. I need to have more detailed or more real world example. But let me before that ask it to analyze or to give you how a replication is done. Okay, so this is the way the replication is done. If you go there and ask it to analyze this one and explain, this is how a replication is done. Replicate this screenshot content in layman terms. Okay, so this is the explanation of the diagram. Okay, let's see. Okay, this is not correct. This is internal record called the USN. This is not correct at all. Okay, the USN, this is a unique number This is not correct at all. I think he didn't read this correctly. Okay, so the USN, it is a unique number that is put on the database of the Active Directory. So if any change on it happened, then it will be known by the other DCs. So for example, if the database of one Active Directory is 100 and then it will change it to 101, then this is an indication to other DCs that a change happened in this Active Directory database, then a replication should be asked by other DCs. Okay, so anyway, so I think we will not, there is something today with the answers of ChatGPT. It is not that good. Okay, I was before having much better answers. I don't know what's happening today, but the answers is not correct. Anyway, so this is for the replication test. Okay, so again, what we need to know here, that the replication test is very important. We need to know if the replication is done as we have seen in the explanation. It will test if the replication is done for the Active Directory database for a specific domain controller. The replication was done successfully, the replication is not disabled, the replication latency is not more than 12 hours. So this is one thing to take note. If we go and continue uh, and see the other things. So here I'm trying to test and see the replication, or do the replication test to see if it is working or not. But let me do something here. I need to ask the other AI tools. Maybe I can get a good answer. Let's go and ask Rika, for example, for this one. If we go and tell him to explain all of these for the replication, like this. If you go like this, copy, and we go to Rika and ask it to explain it. Okay, I think here nothing was explained, or not that good. I try to ask it to give us a real world example to explain what was said here. Okay, like that. Okay, again the answer is not that good. Okay, so not that good at all. Okay, anyway, so let's continue. So this is a replication test. As we have seen, this is very simple test. Okay, I think we'll stop at the read manager. Let's see how much time we have. Okay, the read manager, this is the test that will make sure that the read master is accessible and we can contains the proper information. This is very, very critical because the read master is responsible for giving SIDs to the newly created Active Directory objects. This makes sure that the read master is accessible and working. So this is also a good test, one of the most important tests. If the read master is not accessible, then we'll have problems with administrators trying to create new users in the Active Directory. Okay, if we go there and see this test, it's called Read Manager. This will check whether the read master is accessible and if it contains the proper information can be located. Okay, it contains the proper information. It can be located and have read pool values. It have some pool of SIDs that it can distribute. Okay, so this is good thing. Okay, this is the read master. The role the role must be online and accessible for all DCs to be able to create security principles or SIDs to users, groups, and computer, as well as for further DCs to be promoted within a domain. The test use LDAP and RPC, so it will test the communication to the read master using the LDAP and RPC. So very simple test to make sure that the read master is online and available to the users, not to the domain controllers. Okay. So for example, this is an SID for a user, for example, in the Active Directory. It is divided to a couple of parts. Let's ask the AI tool to explain it. So this is one of the SIDs. For example, what will happen? A domain controller will ask the read master to give it SIDs so it can distribute it to the new users created in it. So for example, if I need to create a user on a domain controller, on an Active Directory, on a domain controller, then the DC will ask the read master to provide some SIDs so it can give it to the Active Directory to create users SIDs for users and groups. Let's see here, for example, this is called literal prefix. This is something related. This means this is a security or something. This is an SID. This is referred to SID or security identifier. Okay, and then 5 here, oh, this 5.1 here. So the S, it is for the security. Okay, 1.5 here, authority identifier. This is for the Windows. It's saying that it is related to the Windows operating system. As for this long number, this is a unique number given to the domain. Okay, so this is, it can identify a domain. Every domain will have a unique number, a domain, and the last one is for the user or the group. Let's ask the AI tool also to analyze this and give us a great explanation or good explanation. Let's see. Let's go and ask it to this one. Explain this in layman terms. Okay, so let me see here. This is very simple explanation. Let me read it for you. Okay. So every user or group or computer in the Active Directory will have a SID like that.
Let's break down this complex-looking string into simpler terms. This string represents a security identifier, SID, which is used in Windows to uniquely identify users, groups, and other security principles. Components of the ASID. 1. Literal prefix, S. This just tells us that the string is a SID. 2. Identifier authority 1.5. This part indicates who created the SID. Here, 1.5 usually means the SID was created by Windows. 3. Subauthorities for uniqueness 21-397954176268126-188411444. These numbers ensure the SID is unique. They represent the domain or local computer where the SID was created. 4. Relative ID RID 10. This is the specific identifier for a user, group, or other entity within the domain or computer. It is unique within the context of the other parts of the SID. Real-world analogy. Think of a SID like a detailed address in a large city. Literal prefix S, like saying address at the beginning. Identifier authority 1 to 5, like indicating the country and state, e.g. USA, California. Sub-authorities for uniqueness 21-3979541622826-1884444, like the city and street name ensuring the address is unique within the country and state. Relative ID 10, like the specific house number on the street. Putting it all together. S, this is a side. 1.5, created by Windows. 21-3979541-6268126-1884444, unique identifiers to make sure the SID is unique to a specific domain or computer. 10, the specific user, group, or entity identified by this SID. In simple terms, this long string uniquely identifies something, like a user or group, in a Windows environment. Much like a full address uniquely identifies a specific house in a large city.
So this is very, very simple as we have seen here. So this is distributed, or the RID will distribute a pool of SIDs, give it to the DC, and then the DC will give it to the Active Directory that will use it when it will create a new user, or when the administrator create a new user or group in the Active Directory. So this is very, very simple as we can see here. Then we will stop at this one for the services, or the test which is called services. This is a test that will check if there is a couple of services running on the domain controller and they are running perfectly without any errors. So we will stop at this minute 58:33. Hope this video informative you all, and thank you all for viewing. Thank you so much.